abundance of liquidity on the sidelines. Election concerns have eased now that the US elections are over, and it's quite clear that Biden is going to be the next president. And put all that together, I think the liquidity but discovery plus the discovery of the vaccine put together implies that markets have more upside, but it will not be a straight line. It will be a bumpy ride because the COVID-19 figures will spook investors from time to time. Demands for stimulus will also cause markets to be volatile. But I think the overall picture appears to be one that's fairly sanguine, fairly positive. And we feel that investors should embrace risk in a bigger way going forward in 2021.
Does the rise in coronavirus infections in the US scupper the rotation into cyclicals, though? Because we've seen how the S&P 500 and the Dow, they've both been suffering for at least the past 4 sessions.
That's right. I mean, the past 4 sessions, yes, but don't forget that if you look at how the markets have done since the end of October, the S&P 500 is up almost 12%. Global equities, as measured by the MSCI World Index, is up almost 15%, and that's slightly more than 1 month. So I'm not surprised if the markets are, taking a breather. You see a bit of correction, pullback. I think that's healthy. But if you look at the medium-term picture over the next 1 to 2 years, it's one that's fairly positive. If you're able to look past the COVID-19 figures, the headline infection numbers, and hope for what will happen with the vaccines now in play, then I think the picture is one that's a bit more positive, and I think investors should really be looking past just purely the headline numbers as far as the COVID-19 is concerned, and looking more at the other positives that will come into play over the next 6 to 12 months.
As you mentioned, the Fed has been providing a lot of liquidity that's been great for the stock markets. We're going to hear a bit more from them later in the week, today in fact, and tomorrow at their Fed meeting. What's the worst that could happen if the Fed decides to taper its QE? How affected might the markets be from then?
Well, if the Fed decides to taper QE, that's going to be bad news for the markets. The markets will be spooked. But I have my doubts as to whether that's going to happen. It's still early days. We haven't had US fiscal stimulus just yet. Politicians are still negotiating, and the Fed knows the importance of fiscal stimulus. And to now backtrack on quantitative easing would not be the best strategy. So my suspicion is the Fed would reassure the markets that it will continue to keep monetary policy very loose, continue to keep interest rates low for several years. And I think that's what the markets are looking out for. But if the Fed surprises the markets and decide to, pull back on QE, taper QE, that's going to be bad news.
Okay, and you also feel that the economic recovery is going to broaden outwards, and it's not just going to be China, it's going to be a more global, synchronized kind of recovery now. What are the economies that you think investors should be diversifying into?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's not just China, but China is taking the lead. We see China growing at about, slightly more than 2% this year, which is going to be the only major economy that will post positive growth this year. Next year, China will probably grow at more than 8%. But that's going to spill over into Asia as well. Asia is a major beneficiary of what happens in China. So we have actually, in the last month or so, turned more positive on Asian equities. We have upgraded Asian equities from neutral to overweight. I think going forward, as the recovery gains more traction elsewhere, perhaps in Europe, America, but mind you, it's going to be a gradual recovery. I think we'll turn more positive on those regions as well. So it is going to be a gradual recovery. As long as the recovery is gradual, I think the markets will be happy. Markets are not looking for a V-shaped recovery because that recovery will be supplemented by the abundance of liquidity on the sidelines, as we discussed earlier. Interest rates are very low. Investors are looking for better returns. So liquidity will be a major driver and source of support for the markets.
The thing about the Singapore market also, Vasu, is how it's been lagging and is one of the worst performers this year because of the lack of tech stocks. That is really gaining momentum. The pace is picking up, though. Where do you see the potential in that?
Promising potential, for the Singapore market, precisely what you just said. I mean, in the last several months, it has been the technology stocks that have done very well. It's been growth, momentum stocks that have done very well. Slowly, you're seeing money move out of growth and momentum towards cyclical and value. And this is where Singapore offers lots of opportunities. Singapore is a market where there are lots of cyclical value opportunities. It also is a market which, with a large, proportion number of REITs listed companies that pay out very good dividends. So I think the Singapore market should do fairly well going forward as money moves out or rotates out of tech, or rather growth and momentum, towards cyclical and value. And it's not just Singapore. I think the rest of Asia too. You have a big proportion of cyclical value stocks in the Asian stock markets, including Singapore. And so that's another reason why we're also positive on Asia ex-Japan.
Vasu, thank you for your time with us today. Vasu Menon, OCBC Bank. And we're headed for a break now on Asia Fest. Stay with us.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's one of the gravest challenges facing humankind.
Climate change is a super wicked problem.
These places will become uninhabitable.
Now, it's the defining moment of a generation. How will our actions impact the world we live in?
There are actually solutions.
We look at opportunities to create more natural capital.
Join CNA on this special journey with a dedicated primetime documentary belt on the climate crisis. Every Monday on CNA. Also available live and on demand on CNA.Asia and the CNA Insider YouTube channel. Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA. Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation, ANA, and SMBC. This is Asia First.
It's 8 a.m. here in Singapore on this Tuesday. I'm Adam Bhatia with your top story today. Light amid the darkness, the U.S. starts its largest ever mass vaccination campaign, with healthcare workers first in line to get protection against COVID-19, as coronavirus deaths in the country cross the 300,000 mark.
I saw a lot of pain, hurt, suffering, death, and so I felt a huge sense of relief after I got the vaccine.
I'm Teresa Tang. Also this morning, caution and concern in Japan. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga presses pause on a domestic tourism campaign and asks people to reconsider year-end holiday travel as the country sees record coronavirus infections. Plus,
Joseph R. Biden. Joseph R. Biden.
Kamala D. Harris.
Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
Joseph Biden.
In state after state, the U.S. Electoral College confirms the result of the November 3rd election, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris set to become the country's next president and vice president, despite Donald Trump's campaign to overturn the result.
I'm Avril Hong with Business News. Australian leaders confirm they've seen a pattern of disruption in China related to their multi-billion-dollar coal exports after Chinese state media say a ban is now in place. Thus, we'll get you set up for the latest pulse check we're getting on the world's #2 economy.